to this story, and Robert McBride is the new director of the foreign branch of the State Security Agency. President Cyril Ramaphosa announced his approval of the appointment, which is for a 3-year term. The position has been vacant for the past 4 years. McBride has previously held various political and security positions, including Chief of Ekurhuleni's Metro Police and the Director of the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, that is IPID. For more on the appointment, we are joined by State Security Minister Ayanda Dlodlo. Minister, good morning. Thank you for talking to us. So what made Robert McBride the right pick for this position in an institution that is besieged with problems and is in the process of rebuilding?
What made him the best candidate was his credentials, basically. He is a man that we all know does the best in any position that he's put into. He has excelled in his post in almost all the positions that he's held. But for me, the most important ones were at the IPID, which was a very good performance there. And also when I took him in for a year when I was Minister for Public Service and Administration, and I had asked him to come in and assist us to establish the ethics and integrity unit. He did exceptionally well in a very, very short space of time. And it's really for that reason that I thought Robert would have been the best person to bring on board to this organization.
And what does his appointment leave us in as far as the trajectory of the changes that need to happen to the State Security Agency, including that all-important reverting back to that structure where the domestic branch was separated from the foreign branch, because that was one of the recommendations. So you've appointed the head of the foreign branch. Where are we in terms of the changes that need to happen that go along with that appointment?
Well, as we speak, Tulasi, we have the head of the domestic branch, who is Advocate Morphy. We also have the head now of the foreign branch, who is Robert McBride. But in terms of the announcement that was made by the President at the State of the Nation address 2 years ago, we are still not where he had wanted us to be, because I think to some extent we overcommitted. We underestimated the magnitude of work that would go into dealing with the issues of legislation, especially given the fact that the geopolitics of the world has changed. The environment with respect to safety and security in most countries has changed. So the analysis on the risks and security threats that we had done did not go the whole hog in terms of what it is that the world is experiencing and what it is that South Africa is likely to experience, not today, not tomorrow, but in about 10 years to come. Because our approach now is that as an intelligence organization, the 5-year planning cycle of government is not what any intelligence organization should be drawing as inspiration for planning. Yeah. But we're looking at a more long-term kind of approach, because the threats and risks to world peace and world security are long-term in their nature. And our thinking is that we needed to go back to the drawing board to ensure that we come up with a piece of legislation that is all-encompassing.
Sure. Minister, I appreciate your candor about, lagging behind in terms of the changes that need to be made. And perhaps if we have time, we can go into that a bit more. But before I do that, let me go back to the question around stability at the State Security Agency. There is a view, Minister, that says the appointment of Robert McBride will not really help much if the instability will continue in other positions. So, for instance, the position of Director General of the State Security Agency and the reports there of tensions between yourself and Director General Loyiso Jafta, whose acting capacity, we understand, was meant to have come to an end at the end of June and has been extended by a further 2 months. 2 months, you kind of need, as you're saying, long-term planning. This piecemeal approach doesn't really help, Minister, does it?
No, it doesn't necessarily help. But again, to us, just as I'm speaking to you now, I'm receiving a call from the DG as well. My relationship with DG is at an all-time high. The acting DG is at an all-time high. And I'm so grateful and happy that we've come this far in dealing with the relationship that went sour over time. I mean, I know Loyiso Jasta from exile. We were actually friends even in exile. And for me, the fact that our relationship has been sorted out to the extent that it has even brought stability into the organization is a plus on both our sides. Now, you must remember that Loyiso Jasta is an employee at a DDG, the DDG in the organization. So he is placed as one of those DDGs that are unplaced. There is no, the President and I have spoken about his appointment. We have reached an agreement on where it is that he would be placed, and we are in the process of looking for a DG to fill that position. But as we speak now, DDG Loyiso is acting, the position will be filled, he will be placed within the organization based on the skills that he has, and we're dealing with quite a number of issues that relate to morale in the organization, dealing with the suspensions that have been going on for so many years, and the labor relations matters that are not being concluded. So there's a whole host of things that I will then begin to concentrate on and leave Robert McBride to deal with issues that relate to the foreign branch.
Minister, just because we are really out of time, let me ask you then about the head of the domestic branch as well. And it's linked, it's that interlinked conversation about stability. You appoint Robert McBride, you have a DG that's acting and whose acting capacity is extended by 2 months. And then you have a head of the domestic branch whose appointment, we are told, is only for a year, up to March or so next year. That doesn't talk to long-term stability, does it?
It will talk to long-term stability, because you must remember that in that space of time that an individual is placed in a position, there are certain issues that are given to him that he needs to implement on, and the minister looks into those matters because they are part of the agreement with that individual that is appointed. Remember that Advocate Mortho will be turning 65 next year, and I have no intention of flouting the rules of the public service regulation. So it's not as if we want to get rid of individuals more than it is the prescripts of regulations and law that enjoin us to take certain decisions. Now, Loyiso Jasta has not shirked his responsibility based on the fact that he's only been given a two-month contract. Actually, what has happened over the past few weeks is that we've seen an escalation of performance in the organization in this period that his contract was extended only for 2 months. So it's a matter of conscientiousness on the part of the individuals that are brought on board. And they don't look at the time at which, the limited time that they're appointed for.
All right, Minister Ayanda Dlodlo, thank you so much. Unfortunately, because of time, we have to leave it there, knowing that there's so much more that we could have talked about, given the number of changes to me that she needs to ring in as far as that institution is concerned. We could have talked about RICA, the Regulation of Interception of Communication Act, the weaknesses identified there, the POSIB, Protection of State Information Bill, which President Ramaphosa sent back to Parliament. But, you only have so much time.
Only so much time. We always say, we always plan, and then something happens within, of course, the hour. But